Welcome to your course on search and seizure. My name is Katie Adams and I'm an Assistant Attorney General at the Wyoming Attorney General's Office, Criminal Division. The focus of this course is the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution. The issues we will cover in this class include similarities and differences between the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 4, what constitutes a search and what constitutes a seizure, situations where the protections of the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 4 do and do not apply, the general requirements for a valid warrant, including the affidavit requirement found in Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution, and some warrant exceptions. The general rule and takeaway from this course is get the warrant. Both the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 4 prohibit warrantless searches. The Wyoming Supreme Court has stated that under both constitutions, warrantless searches and seizures are per se unreasonable unless they are justified by probable cause or established exceptions to the warrant requirement. When a search is conducted without a warrant, the state, namely the prosecutor in the criminal case, will have the burden of proving that one of the warrant exceptions applies. This places an additional burden on the state in prosecuting the case and getting a conviction. In other words, it creates alternative ways in which the defendant can challenge the legality of the government's action. Therefore, it is always best to get a warrant where time and circumstances permit. The next slide contains the language of the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment provides the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The provisions of the Fourth Amendment are best understood in their historical context. The Fourth Amendment is a product, at least in part, of the American Revolution. It resulted from what the colonists perceived as violations of their common law rights as Englishmen perpetrated by colonial representatives of the English crown through the use of general search warrants that were used to enforce trade laws and preserve the American market for British merchants. Those warrants were called writs of assistance. They authorized officials to go into any house, shop, cellar, warehouse, or room or other place, and in case of resistance, to break open doors, chests, trunks, and other packages in search for and to seize prohibited and uncustomed goods. Customs officials were free to enter a residence or business and search at will, and they did so freely to the fury of the colonists. No factual basis was required to justify the intrusion. The writ provided all the necessary justification, and no return of execution was required. The Fourth Amendment was designed to prevent similar abuses in the new republic. The Fourth Amendment therefore provided that the security of the person, home, papers, and effects should not be violated by unreasonable searches and seizures. A violation of that privacy is reasonable when sanctioned by a warrant. The warrant required by the Fourth Amendment differs from the writs of assistance that were prevalent in colonial America in two ways. First, the warrant must be supported by probable cause. And second, the warrant must specifically describe the place to be searched and the person to be seized. This is known as the particularity requirement. The next slide contains the language of Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution. Article 1, Section 4 provides the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by affidavit, particularly describing the place to be searched or the persons or things to be seized. A side-by-side comparison of the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 4 helps us see how those provisions are similar and different. The first section of each of the provisions is identical. Both provide the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause. The difference lies in the second section of those provisions. The Fourth Amendment requires that the warrant be issued upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. By contrast, Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution requires that the warrant be issued upon probable cause supported by affidavit. Now let's back up a little bit and discuss the relationship between the U.S. Constitution and the Wyoming Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is the highest authority on search and seizure rights. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is enforceable not only against the federal government, but also against the state of Wyoming and the rest of the states through the 14th Amendment. The Wyoming Constitution can be more protective, but it cannot be less protective than the United States Constitution. The question then becomes, is the Wyoming Constitution more protective than the United States Constitution? The short answer is yes. Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution is more protective than the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution because it includes the added requirement that the warrant must be supported by an affidavit. An affidavit is a written statement made under oath. The affidavit creates a permanent record of the basis for issuance of the warrant. This theoretically provides an added level of protection because there is a paper trail and a method of knowing the facts that supported issuance of the warrant. Other than the affidavit requirement, federal and state case law generally interpret the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 4 of the Wyoming Constitution equally as rigid.